Welcome back to another week of masterclasses. This week we are going to be focusing on how to play Riven and doing an in-depth Riven guide on patch 14.4. So for those watching in the actual Discord channel, if you have any questions, feel free to unmute your mic or type in the chat. I'll be happy to answer those. And if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to check out the description, join the FITGMR Discord Training Grounds, and we'll be able to help you there, and you can check out these masterclasses live. So without further ado, we'll get straight into it. A little bit of terminology before we get into the class. I will be talking about a variety of stages, or at least stage numbers today. So the way I'll be saying it is I'll be saying two numbers. So the first one I'll say X, that'll be the actual stage number, and then the next number after that will be the round number. So for example, if I say something like 2-1, that just means stage 2, round 1. If I say 3-5, then that'll be stage 3, round 5, etc. So that's what it means if you hear someone say like two numbers referring to a stage. The next one is sitting. This term means once you've hit a specific unit. So rolling until you've hit a specific unit, either it's a 2-star unit, 3-star units, or just board state in general. Once you've hit this, to stop rolling into econ and back up. So you might hear the term, okay, so once you've hit this, then you can sit. You could sit for a couple rounds, or I'm just sitting. Slow rolling is just the best way to really efficiently reroll. Basically, you just reroll any or roll down any excess gold above 50 down to 50 gold each turn. This way you maximize your interest and your rolls. All inning is either at a perfect interval or out of necessity, so you're very low HP, leveling to a specific level, either like 7 or 8, and rolling down all your gold to create your strongest board. Most of the time you do this if you're at like 1 life and you're forced to all in. And then very last one is donkey rolling. So it's basically sending 0 every round in hopes of hitting something. You will be either doing this either number 1, like you're low HP, or you're 1 off of a copy of a very important upgrade. So that is a couple terms. Let's get straight into the table of contents. So today, as I mentioned, it's going to be an 8-bit Riven guide. We'll talk about re-rolling a little bit in general, like quick intro into this. Move on to best in slot items and augments for this comp. And then we're going to break down how to play this comp by stage. So what to do on stage 2, what to do on stage 3, what to do on stage 4, and then your final board and some final tips. So this way you'll know exactly what to do if you're angling this comp every stage of the game. And then we'll end off with a Q&A and some reflection. Okay, so here we go, 8-bit Riven. So, rerolling intro, what is the point of this? Basically, we're trying to find first 2-star versions and then eventually 3-star versions of our key core units. So we'll be getting a spike at 2-star and then another big spike at 3-star. Of course, this will strengthen and stabilize your board, and it's another variation of playing the game apart from playing standard around 4-cost carries. We're now going to be rerolling and either finding 3-star versions of 1, 2, or 3 costs. In this case, 3 costs. Basically, these comps, they spike once you get your 3-star of your main carry, which means that early game you might be a bit weak, but you will get a huge spike mid to late game. In set 10, there were some changes to bag sizing, and this is the most recent one. So 17 here is 3 costs, which means there are 17 3-cost copies of each 3 costs. So because there's 17, it means that 2 different players in a game cannot get 3-star of a 3 cost unless they have a Nico or something. And this means that we really cannot be contested if we're playing Riven reroll. So do whatever you must, even type in the chat like I'm playing Riven, and definitely scout around to see if anybody has a Riven reroll angle, and if they do, then you may want to pivot off, because 2 people angling Riven is just bad news for both of you. And the very last one is because we're rerolling a 3 cost, it's going to be quite expensive and quite later into the game. So we definitely have to be efficiently managing our gold, and I'll guide you through the steps of how to do this. Okay, so that's a quick intro into rerolling. We'll talk about the BIS now, so best in slots. Generally, the left is the best, and then right is the worst in terms of the orders from left and right. So for Riven, you're going to need 3 key components. You're going to need a defense item, a healing item, and then a damage item. So for defense, we're going to be wanting Quicksilver as our main source of crowd control and just defense in general. The reason being is when Riven activates her ability, she has X amount of time of uptime where her auto attacks deal more damage to the unit she is attacking and then adjacent units, which means during this uptime, we really want to be auto attacking with no interruptions and making use of that uptime ability as much as possible, which is why a item like QS is so much more important on Riven than something like a Yone, where his main damage is through his ability. So we really want QS. Alternative to this is Edge Knight. Not as good, but at least an aggro drop is better than nothing. So at least one defense item. Healing, so Death Stance or Death Defiance is the best. This is an Orn Augment. However, this is not achievable every game. So apart from that, Bloodthirst is the next best one. Then Gunblade and then Hodge. Something to note with Hodge is you're only ideally wanting to build Hodge if you have Infinity Edge, so then you could synergize the crit, and then these will be your healing and damage, and then you'll pair this with a QS for crit as well, and that is an optimal build. However, if you don't have an Infinity Edge, I would not recommend building Hodge, and vice versa. If you don't have a Hodge, I do not recommend building Infinity Edge. So now that we've covered defense and healing, we're going to move on to damage. So Giant Slayer is the best. Riven is a front to back comp. However, sometimes you're able to wrap after killing the frontline enemy unit and then make your way into the backline. However, this is not always guaranteed. So for the most part, we're going to be hitting enemy frontline first and before moving to their backline. So Giant Slayer is super important, being able to kill those frontline tanks. Infinity Force, same thing with DD. It comes from Orn Augment. Still very good. However, not achievable every game. And then our next two alternatives is Infinity Edge and Titans. I already talked about Infinity Edge, and then Titans is our last option. Still okay. You'll be a bit tankier because it'll give you resistances, and then your extra AP corresponds into extra shielding. However, something like a Giant Slayer is still better. So regardless, you need at least one defense, one healing, and one damage on your Riven. So in this example here, this is our level 7 board. We're looking at our Riven 3. We have our damage Giant Slayer. We have our healing Bloodthirst. We have our defense Quicksilver. Leftover items we put on Caitlyn and then Viego, depending on what they are. And tank / utility we'll be putting on our Mordekaiser, such as Crown Guard, Even Shroud, and Sunfire. So this is best just for Riven in general. We're going to move on now and talk about the augments and support items. So augments, prismatic. Basically for Riven, we really want any augment that helps us reroll. So any econ augments, good econ augments, and good combat augments. So prismatic, Jewel Lotus is really good. Shopping Spree, March of Progress will help us reroll. Harm Assist for healing, Radiant Relics, because Riven can 1v9 if given the correct tools. Radiant Relics is extremely good on her if you're able to get like a Radiant Giant Slayer or like Radiant BT, something like that. Freaky Friday to give us the Infinity Forces for either Riven plus Viego. Most of the time the second one will go on Viego because he makes use of the stats better than Caitlyn. And then last but not least, stationary, being able to get 2 support items. So those are the really good prismatic ones. Gold, we're mostly just looking at combat. So vampirism, you have my sword. Stationary, idealism. Last Stand is really good in this comp. Jewel Lotus, Harm Assist, support cache, and remember your roots. So all of these are combats, and we need combat augments. We need at least 2 in our Riven comp. The first one can be like an econ augment, ideally either Shopping Spree or March of Progress. Even something like, okay, that's about it. Like technically help is on the way, but that is econ, or that is combat. However, we need at least 2. So if you take an econ augment on 2-1, then you need to make sure that your 3-2 and your 4-2 are combat augments to really augment and boost the power of your board. And then last but not least, silver. Vampirism 1 is extremely good. Stationary 1 are extremely good. I think these are almost like the 2 best silver augments, definitely for this comp. Team building to help you hit, so econ. Indomitable Will, if you take this, then you don't have to be building Quicksilver, and you could build a different item. Blistering Strikes for healing reduction. Best Friend Silver is very good. It's better than gold. And then help is on the way to get your support items. Support items being Banshees, Aegis, Locket, and Zeeks are the ones that you want to look out for this comp. Banshees, same thing as Indomitable Will. You don't have to build QS, and you could build a different item. You could build Titans, you could build Infinity Edge, you could build basically anything additional within either damage or healing, but you don't need that defensive item because Banshees or Indomitable will take care of that. Aegis is very good. It gives you a lot of really good stats, and then you'd want to clump it on your main units. So this will be like Viego, and then you'd put the Aegis on the Mordekaiser and hit your Viego, your Riven, and your Caitlyn. And then last but not least, Zeeks. A little bit risky because then you'll have to frontline your Riven. However, you'll be able to get an influx of attack speed and really boost the start of the fight. So this is best in slot for Riven specifically, and also for the augments and support items. We're going to move on now and talk about what to do for this comp at each individual stage of the game. So starting on stage 2, you may have noticed I included Olaf and Vi. Well, not only are they the best headliners in the game, they are also amazing item holders for Riven. So on 2-1, ideally we want to have either Heartsteel or an Olaf Vi headliner carrying our Riven item. Corki with an 8-bit opener is also very good, but that will not always hit because you'll need Garen. And then if you hit the big shot Corki, ideally you want a Garen, so then you can get 8 bits and big shot both active. Best starting components for angling this comp is sword, cloak, and bow. We need many swords in this comp. We could use infinite swords, so sword is always good. We could also use many cloaks, and then bow we could use as well, at least 2 for red buff, and then 1 more for either titans, or if we have to make a last whisper without an even shroud. So these 3 components are very good in this comp. So playing stage 2, ideally we want to be playing tempo and win streak. So once again, if we hit a Olaf opener or like a Vi opener, we could play around these and slam our items on them. We can also 5 loss with Heartsteel or an Econ Augment. This is applicable as well. A little riskier because this means that you will have to hit on your 3-5 or 4-1 roll down, and if you don't, then it can get pretty sus from there. As I mentioned, on 2-1 is the best time to be taking your econ augments, and then 3-2, 4-2 you want combat. So on 2-1, items or augments such as Spoils of War, 1-2-3s, Iron Assets, Blood Money, these are very good econ augments to help boost the start of your game and really get your economy going. That's stage 2. Then we hit Krugs, we get some more gold, we get some more items, and we move on to stage 3. Oh, one more thing, sorry, this is the Heartsteel board. I mean, pretty simple. If you high roll a K'Sante Heartsteel opener, then very good. And then try to find a second, in this case Heartsteel units, because then you already have 2 for K'Sante. And then you can play any unit that can just help kill enemy units, so anything that has single target. Vi is really good. You can even play like a Nami and then focus all your units on one side of the board to save some HP. So moving on to stage 3, let's say you have 5 win stage 2, then on 3-1 you could level to 6 to continue that win streak. If this is not the case, then don't worry about it. We'll be making our move on stage 3-2, where we will be leveling to 6 because this is our standard interval, playing strongest board, saving HP, and making as much econ as possible. So this is our plan for stage 3. Here are some boards you could play. Urgot is extremely good mid-game for saving HP. He's a beast, he's tanky, he can heal, he can deal a lot of damage, and yeah, he's the whole package. He's a unit. Sorry, no pun intended. We could put our Riven items on Urgot, and he's just very good mid-game, so we can slight roll on 3-2 if needed, and if we hit an Urgot chosen, then we take either or, Mosher or Country. If not, we just play around our strongest board, even if we hit a 2-cost chosen, so like Kale is very applicable. Just play your strongest board, and depending on what you hit, if you slight roll on 3-2 level 6, and because your opener was not that good. So those are some examples. Try to fit in Heartsteel whenever you can to get an influx of gold. If you do fit in Heartsteel, most of the time you'll be going on waiting for 4-1 to go level 7, because you might need a couple of the rounds for the Heartsteel to activate if you put it in on 3-2. If you have it in earlier, then there's a chance you could still 3-5. I'll talk about when to actually 3-5 or 4-1. So first off, on 3-3, so right after 3-2, we don't want to be doing anything. We don't want to roll. We don't want to full level to 7. We just want to wait for either 3-5 or 4-1. Now here's the condition. If your econ is very mediocre or your HP is very mediocre, so you're neither rich, you're neither poor, you're neither extremely healthy, but you're neither like very low, like your board is like just good, then you can wait for 4-1 to go level 7. This is very fine. Wait for after wolves, level 7, and then roll down for your Riven. If you are very rich, then you can level to 7 on 3-5 and roll to stabilize. So most of the time this is if it's if you have an econ augment early, or it's an econ galaxy such as item payout or augment payouts, then you have the money to level to 7 on 3-5, roll down, stabilize with a Riven chosen, or at least like a Yone chosen if you really miss your Riven, and then try again on 4-1. Any time up to this point, we do not want to be itemizing a non-headliner Riven, because what ends up happening, especially not a Riven one, what ends up happening is, let's say we itemize our Riven early, like instead of putting BT or Giant Slayer Titans on like filler units such as like Yone or Urgot, we put it on the Riven, and then we roll down and we hit the chosen Riven, we are doomed. We either have to play 2 Rivens, which is not ideal because that just really lowers the strength of our board until we hit that 3-star, or we'll have to sell a Riven, and that is not good either. So remember, make sure you put the Riven items on placeholders. It's like Urgot, Yone, Olaf, Vi, any of these are fine, but do not itemize a non-headliner Riven. So this is on 3-2. We're going to move on now to 3-5. So this is the first case scenario if we're very rich. This means that after you level, you have like 35 to 40 gold to roll. If you have like 30, like 25 to 30, maybe not do it unless you're very low HP, because then it'll be a lot harder to hit Riven 3 in general. Regardless, we are not going to be dropping under 10 gold. You will be too poor and you will not be able to econ back up. We want to stay above 10, so at least we make the 10 interval, econ back up, and then roll down again on 4-1 if needed. Let's say we leveled to 7 on 3-5. We rolled down and we missed our initial 8-bit Riven. We just want to play strongest board. So this even means Edgelord Riven. This is fine. Let's say we pick up the Edgelord Riven in this bottom board example. If we're close to 3-star Riven, you could just keep it. It's fine. Hit the 3-star Riven on your next roll down. So most of the time that'll be on 4-1. And then tumble to level 8. And then you can play your 2 rapid fire from there. But if you're not close to 3-star Riven and you're just holding onto the Edgelord Riven, you can sell it on 3-7. So this will be the round of Wolves. Then on 4-1, roll down again and look for 8-bit headliner, because 8-bit is just so much better than the Edgelord's Chosen. If you compare these two boards, so these are both level 7. The one on the top is 8-bit. So with 8-bit Chosen Riven, we can fit in rapid fire. We have 4 8-bit. We have a good balance of front and backline units, but in the bottom board we don't have rapid fire. We're now awkwardly 4 out of 3 edgelord in order to fit everything, and it's not a good time. Our next in anyway is going to be rapid fire, ideally Lucian, so we're just sitting at 4 out of 3, and that is not very good. Also, we have to play a Corki on the board, which is not ideal. Okay, so that is on 3-5. Regardless of what happens, 4-1 comes, and now we have to make a decision when to roll. So this is the hardest part. Basically, you just have to analyze your board real quick. If almost full or your full board is upgraded, so this means Mordekaiser 2, Viego 2, Garen 2, Kale 2, you don't really care about this rapid fire unit. Yeah, you don't, sorry. And then Caitlyn 2 is very good if it's itemized. If it's not itemized, then Caitlyn 1, Caitlyn 2, there's no diff. So in this case, our board is stable. Then you can econ back up and start slow rolling for Riven 3. If your board is not upgraded, so we're sitting on like Mordekaiser 1, like even Garen 1, Kale 1, then we can at least roll to stabilize with Mordekaiser 2, Garen 2, Kale 2. And then hopefully we hit like either or of the Viego and Caitlyn, and then that way we're stable. Then we can econ back up. So you need to look at your board. If it's strong and it's stable, then we can slow roll for Riven 3. If it's not strong or stable, then we have to roll back down again on 4-1. So let's say like we've rolled back down, or we even are slow rolling. Once we are 1 off of Riven 3, you could send 0, which means you just roll, you keep going, you could send 0 because you're 1 off, and this spike from Riven 2 to Riven 3 is huge. If you're 2 off, but you have like 40 to 50 gold, then you could do the same thing. It's a little bit riskier, but because you have 40 to 50 gold and you're just looking for 2 Rivens, it is reasonable to hit if you're uncontested. Same thing, if you're 1 off of Riven 3, you could donkey roll. This is the term I talked about earlier. This means just sending it to 0, because if you're, well, like once you hit that Riven 3, you're only 1 off, your board massively spikes, and then you could econ back up and start to go level 8. And once after your Riven has been itemized with 3 units, make sure you itemize your Caitlyn and your Viego. So Viego, just any frontline bruiser items, Azure Knight, Bloodthirster, Hodge, Sterix is very good. And then on Caitlyn, you ideally want to be having, if you don't have healing reduction yet, so no Sunfire Cape, Morello you could also put on Viego, but you could put the red buff on Caitlyn. Infinity Ditch technically is not that good on her, but if you have other crit, then it's okay. Same thing with Last Whisper and Even Shroud. If you have Even Shroud and Mordekaiser, you don't need Last Whisper, and vice versa. However, items such as Giant Slayer and Runons are very good. Basically, you just want to have some sort of healing reduction on your board and some sort of Sunder to reduce the enemy's armor, because you are basically entirely physical damage. So this is going to be your thought process on stage 4-1, and then this is your ideal final board. To really cap out, you want to be looking for a spat, and then spat plus bow in order to get our 8-bit spat, and then we can put the 8-bit spat on Viego. And then we are in business. This is our 6 8-bit board. We eventually put in, we have Corki and Bard, and our board is very good. This is basically a top 1 board, and then maybe if we, even if we get the 8-bit cash out with 6 8-bit, then it's definitely a top 1 board. We could play Bard and Lucian for 2 Jazz. And then our bottom board, if we do not have a spat, then it's okay. We could just play Jazz or Alawi depending on what we need, like a 3rd Jazz or Alawi depending on matchup. Best of all augments, like these, if you get these augments, it's basically handpicked. Shopping Spree, Jewel Lotus, and Harmor 6 are extremely good in this composition. So final tips. First off, regarding positioning, we want to be positioning away from the enemy main tank. We do not want to be getting stuck just attacking the enemy main tank, especially if it is a Zac. The reason being is Zac, when he casts, he'll like fly away or like jump away and start bouncing on like your own targets, and Riven will just stand there waiting for Zac to return while getting hit by the enemy backline. And it's kind of like a CC, because then Riven is not attacking, especially if she's within her ability. So her uptime that we so desperately are trying to preserve by having QS is basically being negated by waiting for the Zac to return. So make sure you position away from the enemy main tank, especially Zac. You know, on the same side, these 3 core units, Mordekaiser, Riven, and Caitlyn, and then have Viego close by, either in the center or even like one left. But basically his jump and damage amplification, you want to be in range so the Riven can benefit off that. Try to wrap onto the enemy carry. So if you see a weak frontline units and then the enemy carry behind, you position same side and then try to just burst through that way. And then last but not least, if you're against non-single target boards, so boards that have a lot of AoE but not a lot of single target, you could frontline the Riven to save a bit of time. This will almost always be in the corner. Sometimes there's some like mid Riven tech, but for now it's fine to just worry or just put her in the corner. So this is like against pentakill boards, they don't have enough single target damage to kill Riven, so you could frontline her there with Mordekaiser, Caitlyn same side. Senna, just position away from the Senna, but you'll be fine. Katarina, same thing. Seraphine, if they have a weak RE, if it's an RE2 with blue buff Nashers and like a 3rd item, then you still want to be hiding in the 2nd row. But if it's just a Seraphine board and the RE is not itemized, or it's not 2-starred or both, then you could frontline your Riven to save time. So these are some final tips for the Riven board, and that is all. So we talked about a lot today. We talked about best in slot Riven items. We talked about best in slot augments, support items, what to do on stage 2, playing around that Olaf Vi for tempo. If not, then you could ideally have Heartsteel and 5 loss. 3-2, playing your strongest board while saving as much HP as possible. 3-5, analyzing if you're very rich, you could send it here, level 7, stabilize. If you're not very rich, then wait for 4-1 for After Wolves to roll down and look for your 8-bit Riven instead of your Edgelord Riven. And then once you hit your Riven 3, go level 8, and then eventually cap out with your either a spat or just Jazz. Like level 8 board, so let's say in the top one, without level 8 we won't play the Bard, or with level 8 we won't play the Bard, and then with level 8 we won't play the Misfortune. And this is just what our level 8 boards look like, and once you go level 9 it will look like this. So that's everything for me today. I hope you learned something about how to play Riven. It's very good comp. Even though her ability damage got nerfed from 100% to eventually now 85%, still a strong comp if you know how to play it and you have the angle. Hopefully this helps you out in your games, and thank you all for watching.